So I'm mixing here. First we have burnt sienna, titanium buff, raw umber, and ultramarine violet. So for this part, right here, I'm going to be using titanium buff, ultramarine violet, and a touch of burnt sienna in there. And I'm just going to come here. See, I'm seeing a really lovely color. It's ultramarine violet with titanium buff and a touch of burnt sienna. But now I put a couple of brush strokes. Now I'm gonna take, I picked burnt sienna and I'm just gonna add burnt sienna here, mix it so I can see it a bit more. So I'm seeing purple with burnt sienna in certain, not everywhere, part of it. I'm gonna go up. This is purple and ultramarine violet. I'm sorry, ultramarine violet and titanium buff. Because I'm seeing burnt sienna at the bottom mostly. Perfect. Now, eventually I'm going to highlight this. So for now, this is the dark part. So it becomes a bit more warm at the bottom. So I see a little bit more of the burnt sienna. It's cooler on top and warmer at the bottom. There's a bit of just so we don't put one color all over, all the way down. Now I'm going to take raw umber, just raw umber, and I'm going to add the raw umber at the bottom. It's darker, bottom part, which is great because this is where, because the sun is mostly at the top, so the bottom is darker. I really don't want to put anything specific there, but I'm just going to put a line across at an angle just to give it a movement, an interesting movement. There is one in the reference, and there's a balcony in the reference too. So instead of putting a balcony, I'm just going to put an opening like that and raw umber. It's going to dry darker. Which is good. I'm mixing ultramarine violet and raw umber. I'm going to make the bottom part even darker, just the bottom part here. Good. Okay. Take titanium buff. And I'm just going to put a highlight of titanium buff. See, titanium buff is not that strong, so if we put a highlight here, it's okay. If we use just titanium buff. There would be a tree hanging over this part of the tree. Okay. Last week or the week before, when we were working on this, I added a touch of cerulean blue. So now today I'm going to do the same. I'm going to take cerulean blue and I'm going to put in it a very small amount of raw umber. So to desaturate the color, because if I put burnt cerulean blue just the way it is with titanium buff, it's going to be too strong. So just to tone it down a bit, I'm going to use a touch of raw umber, very small amount, because if you the raw umber with cerulean blue will turn cerulean blue into green. So just a very small amount. Okay, now it needs more white or titanium buff. So it's a grayish kind of blue. This way, when we put the color, the blue in the water, it will tie in with the walls. Okay, let's take, again, touch of ultramarine violet and titanium buff and just mix it with this. Okay. Good. Okay, so for this wall, we are going to use burnt sienna and cadmium red light. Mix them together and let's put this color here. It's a beautiful kind of vibrant but subdued at the same time kind of red, more like a brick red. And it's nice because the tree is going to be over that too. Eventually we're going to be putting some green. So I'm going to start with a dark, and I'm actually going to darken a touch. So I'm using more burnt sienna in here, more earth colors. It's going to be greens in here, but that's nice. It's nice to have a background that has a bit of red in it when we put the greens. And over here on this side, it's going to be highlighted eventually, because it has more of the light color up here. Over on this side, around this window, it's a much lighter color. So I'm going to take titanium buff, add it to the same color we're using, burnt sienna, touch of cadmium red, light and titanium buff, and just put it right here. It's going to be very close to the color of the wash we have on the canvas. I have burnt sienna, that's why. It's more like a pink. Now, I'm putting in the same mixture a little bit more of the cadmium red light and take a touch of burnt sienna, and I'm going to put it here. This is the only strong color that we have in this painting. We don't have more than that. We don't have strong colors in here. Now for the window, of course, the window is just going to be a suggestion of a window. Raw umber. Let's put some titanium buff in this raw umber. A touch of ultramarine violet. Let's just put a kind of a suggestion. Take titanium buff. A soft frame, very soft. Again, just suggestion. Okay. Let's take raw umber now. Titanium buff, just not a lot of titanium buff, just enough to soften the raw umber. A bit of blue. Oops. And now let's go down to where the wall is, the bottom part. Burnt sienna. I'll stop in a minute. I'm going to put a touch of burnt umber in here with the burnt sienna and titanium buff. I will eventually, once it's dry, I will go back and adjust the color of this wall. titanium buff. Bottom of the wall is a light color. And the very bottom is dark. So I'm using raw umber. Now, there's a big dark door or window behind him. We will put this eventually. I'm just preparing the wall right now, so I'm not going to deal with that door for now. Just put enough what we need to put for the wall. And then we'll take it from there. Okay. Okay, for the green tree in here, I'm using a bit of sap green. This is sap green, it's not black. Raw umber to make it more earthy. You could use raw umber, you could use a bit of red, you could use ultramarine violet. They're all good. And then to highlight it, to make it lighter, we're going to use Naples Yellow. So for the first layer, actually, I'm going to take Naples Yellow in here. Put Naples Yellow. I don't want it to be too strong. And what we're going to do is a very soft Let's highlight it a bit more, especially when where it meets the sky. So I'm pushing the colors around with my brush. Nothing, nothing detailed, no details.
Should be fairly light, no?
Yeah, light.
Okay, some more Naples.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now I'm going to add a tiny bit of slightly darker, because when I added the Naples Yellow, I didn't add it everywhere in here on the mixture. I added the Naples Yellow on the side, mixed it with green on the side. So now, again, I'm going to do that. Watery kind of paint, so you don't get, you get like a blotch, or not blotch, a mass of color. Let's put here, take a touch of raw umber with my with the Naples Yellow. I'm blocking, nothing, no detail, just blocking. I'm gonna add a bit of dark green, meaning I'm taking sap green and I'm putting raw umber in it. And I'm just gonna darken the bottom part a bit. Then more raw Naples Yellow. You know what? I'm gonna put Naples Yellow and a bit of titanium buff because where it meets the sky, it's nicer if it's not too heavy. Yeah, and it's because the acrylics dries darker anyway, so that's better. Now, I'm gonna take raw umber. Oh, you know what? I'm gonna change my brush to a smaller round one so I can control the brush stroke. And I'm just gonna try to add branches. I'm softening this wall. First of all, I went over this a bit with the green too much, so I'm putting the wall back in. And I would like to soften this line. So I'm using red and I'm wiping my brush. So I have leftover red on my brush and I'm just putting it over here. A bit of more red for this part. And that's it. Just leave it maybe a touch. Now, I think we used cerulean and maybe titanium buff for the sky. Can't remember. Gonna take a bit of cerulean with titanium buff. Soften all this in here. So I'm kind of like glazing over this. This is titanium buff and a bit of cerulean glue in it, and it's watery, so it's glazing. I just don't want that harsh edges because there's sunny part in there. If you look at but regardless of what's in there, I think it's nicer if it's not too harsh. Detail on that. Okay, so let's put the door here. A suggestion of the door. I'm using raw umber and ultramarine violet. So I'm just gonna do kind of a dark. Trying as much as I can not to have harsh, strong lines. Okay, my brush is not cooperating, but that's okay. I'm gonna go across this way. It's going with the movement of that wall, the same. And I don't want it to be solid. So I like it this way. It doesn't have to be solid. Now, there's a nice arch on top. And it's just, I'm gonna do this. Now, I'm gonna take a clean titanium buff. Tone it down with a bit of raw umber or raw umber and just a bit raw umber and ultramarine violet. Doesn't matter, just as long as it's toned down. So around this is a very nice detail that we can't see it well. There's a stone right here on top, and there's one here and one there. So it's just not because I want to put detail, it's just I want to put an interest there, something interesting. I don't want details. I'll tone it down in a minute. This is too light. No. Oh, geez. This is just a suggestion of a window there. Not window, I'm sorry, door. So this dark I have in here, that's the shadow of the arch over the glass. This is glass, this is door, and it's wood. And then you have a kind of a nice detail over the door with stone usually. And this little thing, the dark that we see, that's defining this arch, is just a shadow of that over the glass door, the glass window on top. And that's all we're going to put in there, nothing else. Now, one more thing, which is nice. I like it. It's there's a light on this wall right here and right there. And this in between that you see is a chimney from a building here. Somewhere here, there's a chimney. And that's the reflection of the chimney. So that's why we're getting this pattern of highlight or sun. There is something in here, I don't know what it is, grid, iron, we're gonna ignore that. So let's do this. So I'm gonna take Naples Yellow, and I'm gonna take titanium buff. So I'm making my titanium buff a little bit yellowy. And I'm gonna come here, and it doesn't matter. I'm not trying to make it a bit watery. I'm not trying to show the chimney. I just want to put highlight. Wow, that's strong. This is too strong. So what I'm gonna do, and I'll tell you why it's strong and why I'm toning it down. It has something to do with, I'll do this first, and then we'll talk about why I'm doing this, why I'm toning it down, and I'm not putting it too saturated. It's usually, technically, it's the wall on top. This part of the wall is on top here. Is different than the brick down here. So the color is lighter because this wall probably over here has a bit of different stone. It's not the brick that you see here. I'm going to take a touch, very small amount of burnt sienna, and I'm putting it here, and I'm going to highlight the wall with burnt sienna at the bottom. So without trying to draw this chimney, all I did is I just painted the highlight the way I'm seeing it there, and it gave me the shape of the chimney. I have a feeling this wall is a bit too steep. Okay. So the reason is for this kind of shadow that's muted, I'm trying to do in here, it has a lot to do with the values and the temperature and the saturation of the wall, of this walls. Nothing in here, everything is desaturated in here, meaning that I did not use a color that comes straight out of the tube. So if I'm using Naples Yellow, I didn't put Naples Yellow right there, you know, like the way it is, just Naples Yellow. Or let's say, actually a better idea, a better example is blue, cerulean blue. There is cerulean blue in here, but it's all grayed. It's all gray. All of the colors are the same saturation, same temperature in here. Kind of, not temperature, actually, I should say temperature. Value, kind of values are very close to each other. There's no high value and low value. There's nothing too strong jumping. It's all the same, very sick. Only thing is here, it might be a little bit different, but that's why I couldn't put a strong highlight in here, like a really, really strong. It had to be kind of muted. And you see it on the reference. When you look at the when you see the reference, you see that the highlight is muted. It's not washed like this. It's not high, strong, slow. And because if we don't do this and we put a strong highlight in here, it's going to jump and it's going to look like it's out of place. It's not going to follow the same feel that we have in here.